Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast number 104. I have actually spent the last 15 minutes more or less recording outtakes, which I guess I'll put at the end of this video, not intentionally. This is the first podcast I'm doing that's not fueled by caffeine, and I'm feeling it. Not that I feel lethargic, but man, am I having a heck of a time trying to string together a sentence. Just kind of cloudy here a little bit. So it's a good thing that I've got my notes right here to refer to, because otherwise I think I would be kind of lost. Where should I start? Oh, I'll start with the giveaway, the 200,000 subscriber giveaway that I'm doing. I got to be pretty close by the time this video releases. I think maybe I'll hit it Tuesday, possibly Wednesday. It kind of depends. Viewership was way up in March until the last week of March, and then things have really died off fairly significantly. So I don't know which is the aberration, the spike in viewership or the dip in viewership, but hopefully things normalize soon. Anyhow, the 200K subscriber thing. If you ever have a YouTube channel and have a bunch of subscribers, don't do one of these, okay? This, especially if you're the sort of person like me that gets in and reads every single comment. Let me just take a look. We'll see what the first 24 hours was like. So I had just shy of 2,000 comments in the first 24 hours after releasing that video. And to go through and look at them all, that's time consuming, very time consuming. But I do it anyway because I love you guys, and I hope you love me too. Hope you love whoever wins this. I hope they love the package because it's a big package. If you didn't watch that video, I'll link to it right up here. What else is going on? Oh, I had a viewer tell me that Dr. Ken Berry mentioned me in one of his videos. And I'm like, oh, is it good? Is it bad? I think the only time I've mentioned him in a video was when I was on the Two Crazy Ketos Veterans Day live stream. And I talked about the video where Dr. Berry is making his bacon chips. And he used the leftover bacon grease, or he had some bacon grease like on his hands. And instead of wiping them off on a towel, he used it like hand lotion. And I thought, that was just epic right there. And, mentioned it to Joe and Rachel. So I had to go back. I'm trying to find, where did he talk about me? Eventually I found it, and it was in the middle of one of his live streams. Someone asked him about Tarragum, or Tarragum, however it's pronounced. And he just mentioned, yeah, the guy at Serious Keto used that in the video, or something like that. So I was hoping, it was something cooler than that. But still, just to get mentioned, kind of nice. Speaking of mentioning, somehow my list is just sort of coming together into a nice little segue type of thing, sequence. I got a message, I think it was 2 weeks ago, from ketogenic.com. They contacted me and said that in conjunction with I think it's the Metabolic Health Conference, whatever's coming up, I think it's in Santa Barbara in a few weeks or in May. But apparently I was nominated for some ketogenic awards. One was, I think, Best Educator, and then the other was like keeping keto positive or something like that. And they said, here's a link, tell all your viewers, get them out there, have them vote. And my response was, that's kind of not my thing. I'm not going to self-promote for an award. And honestly, I was so just flattered that any of you would even nominate me for something like that. And then I also kind of felt not entirely deserving. And this isn't false humility. I don't think I'm there yet. So that's why I didn't tell anybody. That's why I didn't publish the news, make a big video. Hey, vote for me. Like I said, not my thing. I would have been, I think, kind of uncomfortable, even I think winning an award. So when they hit March 28th, I think, then they narrowed it down to the top 3. And I looked at both of those lists, both Top Educator and Making a Positive Difference or whatever it was. And I honestly let out a sigh of relief when I saw that I wasn't in the top 3. That, and this may sound weird, I'm a YouTube content creator. I ought to be promoting things, but I don't want to promote me. Interestingly, I've also found in the comments that a number of you are the personality type, the Myers-Briggs personality type INFJ, which is the same as me. And I think INFJs kind of find one another. And I suspect that those of you that are that personality type understand where I'm coming from in terms of the public recognition and the getting awards and things like that, and how that's just, it just sort of makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But like I said, I am super duper flattered to have even been nominated. Thank you to whomever or all of you who did that. I do appreciate that. That does make me feel good. This past week, I had my annual physical, and it went great. Physicals used to be something I really feared because I felt I'm being judged, and probably rightfully so, for this horrible condition that I'm in. There was no probably good metric that came out of any physical that I had. It was an anxiety-inducing experience. More like my lab work and what the doctor was going to say about my weight and my blood pressure and resting heart rate and all those things. That was actually more of a concern for me than any of the probing and jiggling and coughing and stuff like that, things that involve rubber gloves. That, I accept as part of, a physical. And I've mentioned this before on videos as well. I know that women get it a lot worse than the guys get it. So I don't complain about that. But the last 3 years have really been pretty cool going to get my physical. So, first off, the doctor is just amazed at the weight I've lost, the blood pressure coming down. I'm probably going to be off of blood pressure medication altogether soon. I was 3 years ago on 3 different daily doses. So lisinopril twice and amlodipine once. And now the doctor's like, hey, you could take so I'm down to just the one, which is lisinopril. And the doctor said, all right, start cutting your tablets in half. Let's do that for a couple of weeks, and then check your blood pressure, and come back and see me if it's better or worse. We'll make a decision. So that's cool to be off of medication. I got my liver panel back. That looks spectacular. The one thing that I was hoping I would have gotten back in terms of lab results prior to this podcast was my blood work. And when I talked to the doc about my blood work, first I insisted on getting an NMR lipid profile, which includes the LDL particle size. Because last year I had the regular one, just the standard, here's your LDL, here's your triglycerides, here's your HDL. And even though triglycerides, spectacular, HDL, fantastic, all the ratios between triglycerides and cholesterol were in the ideal situation, LDL was high, and thus total cholesterol was high. And my doctor started freaking out and talking about putting me on a statin, wanted to have me have a CAC, so a cardiac scoring CT. And I said, I'll have the cardiac scoring CT, but we need to do an NMR lipid profile. And of course, that came back and showed that the majority of my LDL is the good LDL, the large particle size, the big fluffy stuff, not the small spiky stuff that's bad. So that ended that conversation. Now this year we came back, and again I said I want the NMR, and he seemed to understand the reasoning why. There was no pushback at all, and he came back and he referenced last year's CAC, which was a 3. And he said, listen, if you're under 100, that's great. 3 is essentially 0, and there's a high likelihood that you got from 0 to 3 in that first 50 years of your life where you were treating your body like crap. So once I get the cholesterol results back, I will share those with all of you. I think that's it for the doctor visit. It was cool. I'm happy. Oh, I did get a referral also to see an orthopedic surgeon about my knees. And hopefully we can do something, not surgical, but I'm getting pretty tired of the way my knees feel. Keto saved me for a while, but I've needed knee replacements for quite a long time now, or something. And that appointment will be on April 22nd. So if any of you care about my health, I will address that in the podcast following. A topic that I recorded last week, but then deleted because it went way long. We were going to be at about a 32-minute long podcast, which is just way beyond what I would expect anyone to watch or listen to. But one of my viewers asked me about body image. And what do you do about body image? You know, if you've got a bad body image still, despite losing weight, she specifically asked, you know, when you look at yourself, what do you see? And when I look at myself, most of the time I see fat Steve. I see me as I was for many, many years. Periodically, there are times I look at me and I think I see, you know, skinnier Steve. This is one of the things that, in a way, I miss a little bit about alcohol is then I was able to look in the mirror and I always thought I looked great. But it's a topic that I think is, it's beyond my capacity to really speak intelligently on. I think it's very much a psychological sort of an issue. And I've had body dysmorphia, I think, all my life. You know, when there was a time period when I was lifting weights a lot and I always felt I looked scrawny and weak. And I look back at some of these pictures and I think, wow, man, I was actually looking pretty good. You know, and then of course now, even having lost a bunch of weight and now I'm putting on some muscle over the course of this year so far, I still, the most of the time, I look in the mirror and I don't see it. And for that reason, there is one little bit of advice that I can share with all of you. And it's the same thing that I put into it was my 6th part of Steve's Transformation video series. If you haven't watched that and you've got a bunch of time on your hands, I'll link to that. Either up there or maybe in the end card or maybe both, maybe down in the description, maybe all of those places. But in that 6th and final video in that series, I talk about the importance of taking pictures. Take pictures at the start of your journey, take pictures throughout your journey, because you look at yourself daily and you don't see the change. That's why it's exciting to see someone, you know, after 6 months, a year, whatever, when you've been doing keto, is their mind is just blown. They're like, oh my gosh, you look so great. What are you doing? And then you tell them keto and they're like, never mind. But take pictures along the way. So on those days when you're looking at yourself and you're thinking, I haven't made any progress, I don't feel great, I don't look great, the scale isn't moving, you can go back and you can look at those pictures and see where you came from. Keep some old clothes too. Keep that one pair of pants, that one shirt, whatever it is, because you know you can give all the rest away to charity, but keep at least one outfit that you can put on later on. And you know, like for me, I made a mistake. I had one of my suits tailored midway through the weight loss process, and thus when I did the pictures of me in my suit, like right here, it looks like, oh yeah, Steve lost some weight, but that was after already getting, I don't know how many inches removed from the waist of my suit. I mean, when I put on my suit, the pants, I had to get a new belt because the belt, I went from the fattest hole on the belt or the widest circumference hole on the belt to the narrowest hole wasn't enough for me anymore. So I had to get a new belt and I had all my pants like cinched up, you know, around me, and I had to like pull them, you know, fairly high up just because they, you know, otherwise they would have been super duper baggy in the butt. And my suit coat, I look like a little boy when a little boy puts on his dad's suit. That's really what I look like. There was a shirt I really liked. I felt made me look thin, you know, back when I was 230, 235, you know, and this is what it looks like after the fact. So like I said, I can't address the what do you do mentally to create a more positive body image, but I can tell you that a great thing is have these reference photos, reference clothes items to look at, and let that be a reminder. Let that be a reminder that you are making fantastic progress, you're doing great on this journey, and it'll motivate you to keep going. The final thing I want to talk about is it's a little bit of a preview of an eventual pragmatic keto episode on ingredient police and how sometimes ingredient police have the right intentions, it's just they got the wrong information or they got incomplete information and then just sort of ran with it. And there's an instance of that this week of sort of information that got widely proliferated that I think has the potential to create a big slew of ingredient police. And that is an article about a recent study that was done on artificial sweeteners and their possible link to cancer. It was done in France. And some of the articles are not great on this. I mean, some are really sort of sensationalizing it. Probably the one that I found that was the least sensationalizing, if that's a word, was on euronews.next. And in that, they talk a little bit about the size of the study. It was observational, it was volunteers, and they also point out one of the things that the scientists said that rarely gets pointed out, which is there is a difference between correlation and causation. So just because two things happen together don't necessarily mean one caused the other. Furthermore, as I go through the Euronews study, I don't believe they mention the sweeteners. And therein lies a big part of the problem, because people just very often will see a headline, and then to those people, it could mean that all things that are not sugar, that are sweet, are causing cancer. And that's not at all what the article says. But I expect every sweetener now that isn't sugar is just going to get lumped into this category mentally for a lot of people, whether that's allulose or erythritol or sucralose or whatever it is. Now, it turns out that they only studied 3 different sweeteners here. One was aspartame, which I pretty much avoid. I've heard enough, bad stuff about aspartame. I can't tell you what it specifically is, which is why I'm not going to be the ingredient police on it. I can just tell you that enough is stuck in my brain about it that that's one that I avoid. The next one, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, acesulfame. Apparently it's under the trade name of Sunnet or Sunet and Sweet One. I've never heard of this particular sweetener. And the third one was sucralose. And what they found was there's a bit of a correlation between the first two, aspartame and acesulfame, however it's pronounced. There was a correlation between that and cancer, and it seemed like predominantly breast cancer. They saw no correlation in terms of sucralose. So the problem is with these articles is they'll pick and choose what they want to share with you, the viewer or reader, and then with this limited packet of information, you're supposed to go forth and make food decisions. And some people do. They make their own food decisions with it. And some people study a little bit more and learn a little bit more and decide then to make a food decision. And some people don't study anymore, but then like to get into comments and tell people, you shouldn't eat that, that's bad, that causes cancer. So if that article pops up in your news feed and you don't feel like reading it, I've kind of just given you the Cliff Notes version. Correlation does not equal causation, and it's just 2 of the sweeteners that they saw. It was aspartame and acesulfame, or however you pronounce it. Those are the 2 to be on the lookout for if you want to be on the lookout for an artificial sweetener to not use. Anyhow, this uncaffeinated podcast has been without a doubt the hardest for me to get through and to be articulate. If this doesn't straighten itself out in a hurry, I'm back on coffee for sure. But that's going to be it for this video. I may have some outtakes here, just so you can see what a struggle I was having. Thanks for watching. The first one that has ever been recorded without the brain little muddy still. That's like, I don't know. I can't even remember what it... For the caffeine thing, not so great. Man, I am really having a tough time today.